pieces of Dawncore, 2 pieces of Z10, but also 2 pieces of Ex Oblivione, which was the team that qualified these guys into this spot. So it is a brutal time for both these teams. They've had all day to really just deliberate over what this game is going to mean, and it's either playoffs or bust.
Playoffs or bust. Could not agree more. We're heading in. Burn into T'Challa will be our first matchup. Vice have consistently banned Ultron every single game. Not surprising when you are playing something like an Iron Man who can get pinged out of the sky nice and quickly. But it's going to be NJC that ban it out first, with the Jeff being the first priority ban here for the side of Vice.
Does this tend to be, usually it tends to be like you ban out the Jeff first and then you pick it, because most teams are going to go for Ultron or Mantis. You've taken out the Adam. Both teams have Mantis available currently, so there is a free protect, but actually the Luna is going to be prioritized for both teams first.
This is Vice's first Jeff ban. They have not banned Jeff up to this point. 4 bans on Ultron, 3 on Emma, 2 on Mantis, 2 on Jean, 3 on Adam. No Jeff. They have never banned Jeff up to this point. That is quite surprising.
You got Jeff, Adam, Ultron on one side, and then Ultron, Adam, Invisible Woman. So Jeff is still available to ban out in the end, but it seems that like NJC are going to let it slide and also make sure that they get the Mantis, because it's crazy that it's been this long before the team's actually done anything to them.
It's made it through. Mantis, again, is actually something that Vice let through often. They've only banned it twice so far this stage. So seeing that go over to NJC isn't too surprising. But when they look at their opponents, they have played into Mantis twice and lost both games. Is that too risky? There goes that Hulk ban. Being banned by both teams, NJC have heavily lent on Hulk Namor so far.
So both teams have Mantis available to them. One team predicted it, the other one didn't need to. Okay, fair enough. Going for Benim T'Challa, so is always a domination map, like we said, that we always start on. But also that like the Jeff is non-mirrored, so Vice have access to that. Venom wasn't in this draft at all, so it means that Lugia has got a pretty easy team up to work alongside.
This is
one of the more peculiar drafts, I think.
Yeah, this is the first time that NJC have also not banned Mantis. They've banned her every game, and they're 2-2. This is the first time they've let it through, so we do get that mirror.
And have teams actually let it through at all for Vice?
Vice have let it through most games. Or is it have they let it through for Vice to play?
Teams against Vice let it through. Like, have we seen Vice actually play the Mantis themselves?
Yes, once, and they lost.
Maybe they thought that was enough.
It has been bad against them 4 out of their 5 games.
I guess that is something that can happen, where there's just characters that are so consistently banned out that you never get around to actually playing them when you have the opportunity. So when you do have the opportunity in officials, you're just not good as a Mantis team. But that doesn't feel like Vice for me. Certainly not with the core pieces that came in from Zero Tenacity that was super flexible and really love to run triple strategist full stop. It's going to be Baby Bat that's actually going to be on the Mantis themselves. And Luna and Jeff is going to be alongside Knuten. Solo duelist over on the Star-Lord.
That's a lot of extra sustained damage boost in there. Is going to be very effective, but already losing Oligathon onto the backline. But Coco taken out on the mirror, and potentially, I would argue, that taking down that Phoenix is a huge remove when it comes to the damage, while still having 2 strategists. Vice come out on top here. As such, the fight has to move onto the point. Spyglass trying to rush on forward in order to try and take the contest, but another Blaster Barrage takes down Spyglass on the mirror. Free Lose is taken out, and this is a slow but steady point control for Vice.
That was a really good hold. With the NJC, they were on Mantis to begin with, right? Pox has just switched over to the Invisible Woman after one fight. It was because they were running 2-2-2, so they had the 2 strategists, and it just that combo that came in for Knuten dives in with the shift. It's just too much damage for NJC to stay alive with.
Coco going to be sieging in. Free Lose diving onto the point, trying to put some pressure onto the back line, but there's too many strategists, there's too much sustain, being forced to dash away. Knuten not going to let him go, though, coming in with the Galactic Legend onto the low ground, and everyone is grouped together, though. There's too much sustain coming in, not going to be able to take out anyone. Teemo will take them out with the melee.
Now they need to back off just a little bit more. They haven't found up all of the ultimates that you might require if you want to just hold this. Maybe a little bit overzealous and a bit arrogant for Vice to think that they can go for that. And now you've provided some space for Spyglass to actually come in with the Kraken's impact. He's managing to get a lot of picks onto people, and the resets are going to come in thick and fast. So 55, 56, maybe even a little bit more, as Vice are doing a good job to stall this out consistently. It is going to be now control of NJC on the objective. 57% on the board for Vice, where they have loads of ultimates. Weird fight, weird.
A weird fight indeed, but hey, they are starting to hold at least a little bit. They're able to flip it around. Vice sent off the point, forced to regroup with their ultimates that they've held on. Are they able to recontest here? They have the shenanigans at the ready to try and fight in this choke point, but they've got to be careful. Fighting into a choke point versus a Phoenix is always risky. 3 down already. Wow.
And I'm more concerned about the fact that, yeah, sure, the elimination feed is full of a lot of blue for NJC, but it's after using one ultimate, which was an invisible boundary. They still have so much else to work with. And so far, the team fights that NJC have won has just been off the back of using one Kraken's impact and one invisible boundary.
Trying to fight them far forward, keep them away from the objective. They're forcing them almost all the way back to spawn here, but Timo is going to be forced to back up. Nice Mind's Aegis will block out the counter here, pushing on forward, trying to get onto those backliners, but the healing output from the Madness and the bonus help is good. It's Jeff. Can they get any of those backline members? That is a diamond form for the Phoenix.
It's free.
That is a huge pickup. Triple, but it's all their own team, and Oligator is taken out.
He was never really going to survive, even if he did catch 3 enemies, to be fair. There's so much focus. The Endsong Inferno making him down to 8 HP, so it was just any splash damage to make it lethal in the end. This fight for Vice started off so well, and it looked, frankly, a little bit easy with their approach, but ever since that overextend with the Galactic Legend, Vice have been kind of treading water, really, trying to keep themselves alive. And now NJC are 86% onto the point, and they're still resetting some characters and players from Vice.
Portal has to be used. Vice are in trouble. They've got to, like, pull the trigger now. 94, 95. Portal comes in. Knuten respawns. He does have Galactic Legend because it's all about this now. Overtime ticking down. Here comes the Galactic Legend. Knuten trying to rush the backline. Gets Protoss. Gets Pucks. But is taking huge amounts of damage. Will go down in exchange. They're going to try and take this for free. Lose will fall. And NJC are going to be wiped off the point. But they did get Knuten, meaning that they will be able to try and make their way back in. If they portal, they might beat him back, but it looks like they're going to save it.
No need to use it now. You still got 40% of progression to make up for Vice. After much better from Knuten, right? The Galactic Legend able to just pretty much clear up 4, and it didn't feel like an overextend in those fights. Now NJC, not having ultimates themselves, they're close to a couple, but you have to really look at when the Ensong's going to come in, and I think notably, Knuten, if he can get another Galactic Legend, or if Spyglass is going to make a Kraken's impact sing in favor of NJC.
Here comes the backline assault from Lugia, keeping the pressure on as Missouri getting zoned down as well. That's a lot of pressure on Doligator into the backline. The Iron Vagabondo going to be forced to come out, but both strategists are down. Missouri falls. Baby Bat is being forced to ult just to buy time, just to delay, because there's no portal. They have to delay this as long as they can, but in the meantime, Spyglass is finding every isolated member. Knuten is just flipping as best they can for the bonus help to buy every extra second. Oligator is making their way back with the speed boost. Lugia is keeping this ticking on the overtime. 99 to 99. Whoever wins this fight will be able to take it. Free losers portaling back in, which will give NJC the advantage, but they've lost Timo, meaning that this is Vice's opportunity to try and take this. It's Jeff. If they get in the backline, it could be huge, but no, they've already taken down the Winter Soldier, meaning Oligator finds nothing and is taken down. Pog's able to get the pickup. Galactic Legend coming on out from Knuten, chasing down the backline, and it's gonna be a solid team wipe. Timo first to go down and last to go down in the fight as Vice take first point.
Crazy fight at the end there, but good stuff from Vice, and Knuten just always seems to be the poster child, the golden boy of this team, pretty much cinching it in favor of them. Really nice Galactic Legend at the end. Last two certainly make it up for the first. And honestly, just the way that this team was able to survive when it gets scrappy, it's why they had such a good hold on Midtown, that 5-minute one. But I have to say, some really good moments, certainly from Spyglass. 11 final hits, 20 and 3. But also, I think that Vanguard line of Timo and Freelose have been doing tremendous work to just find picks and make sure that Vice are always on the back foot. But it's not been enough.
They have. Timo's been like focusing onto Knuten. They've actually been a big reason they've been taken down. a couple times here. But like you say, it's not enough. The damage output, Knuten is just being protected too much. They're sacrificing backliners multiple times. There have been times where they've lost all of their strategists and still survived because they've still had Lugia and Knuten on the point.
Let's rock this.
Not too much of a change for the characters in play for Vice. Pretty much is everybody sticking to their guns, because I don't think either side are going to feel like it was anything to do with the characters that they were playing. But I think how this first fight is going to go is going to be key. Vice took the first point very easily just off of Knuten going in and doing enough damage to the 2-2-2 lineup of NJC. Don't want to let that happen here, especially with how open this point starts off as.
Pressuring onto the point, Phoenix trying to get onto Knuten, who rushes in so quickly. Blaster barrage onto the point, Pox dropped low, but Protoss keeping them topped up. Lugia forced to retreat, gets a Jeff bubble to keep that momentum going, to keep that speed onto the point. But again, first point going to be taken nice and quickly by Vice. The question is, will this time they be able to hold it?
You've got some ultimates actually being picked up from NJC. The duelists actually being able to get their ultimates online before anybody else. Surely this feels like NJC, you must have an inclination that your ultimates are very quick and that you want to be using these as soon as possible. And yeah, exactly. Spyglass is going to come out with a Kraken's impact. And now, just as Vice get their ultimates online, the Soul Resurgence used instantly by Baby Bat, and then the Psionic Seduction from Missouri, just in the nick of time, saved by the bell, keep things in favor of Vice.
Knuten back after getting popped in the beginning of this fight, but the fact is, Vice are still contesting. A knife 1v1, Lugia takes down Spyglass, Protoss picked off on the flank, and this was a much more safe hold by Vice in what was essentially a 5v6, as Knuten just got blasted in the beginning of that fight so quickly, but Vice still held.
He got blasted. I think NJC had like the better ult economy. Like, granted, they're not going to know too much in the server because they don't know really what Vice is at for their ultimates. But here it's a good pick, at least to start the fight for NJC. The Freedom Charge is going to allow them a chance to actually contest the point, and it's been taken mostly for free as Vice are actually fighting off the point. Now have to sort of reroute themselves to contesting this because NJC almost just took it flat out.
It's Jeff onto the back line. Phoenix immediately shutting that down. We've seen it so many times today that Endsong Inferno has been the main way to try and deal with the Jeff. But in the meantime, Free Lose capitalizing on the fact that they've taken down one strategist, getting two more, and it's slow once again. But we're starting to see NJC get some pickups, but in comes Knuten to delay even longer to make sure they can contest the point, but he will go down. But he just delayed that, gave them a solid 5% extra.
Just something to work with. Also wants to reset as quick as he possibly can, just so everybody can group up together. NJC wanted to try and take this fight a little bit further away from the point. And Knuten might smell blood in the water here a little bit with just that the strategist ultimates were used. It's 34% before Protoss will have a fate of both worlds. It's just maybe the question mark is around that Invisible Woman. Is she going to have Invisible Boundary? Can I get in there first? He thinks so, and he actually is able to take out the Invisible Woman straight. It is a trade, but you make sure that Invisible Boundary cannot be used here at all from NJC.
Spyglass may have just saved their team the game there with that pickup onto Knuten, but they are taken down as well. And even with such an early pickup, they still lost their backlines before it even happened. They've been able to track everyone who's here on the defense, and that point is ticking on up. Protoss is coming in with the portal. Free Lose touches the point, but I don't think he touched it in time. Portal reaches.
Yeah, Portal reaching just in time. Invisible Boundary is going to provide a bit more of a safe exit. And there's a lot of damage and healing per second added in from Baby Bat, but it's not actually enough to keep themselves alive whilst this fight is ongoing. Lugia coming in with a Feast of the Abyss, mostly to keep himself alive for just a few more seconds longer, a couple more frames to allow that Silent Seduction to come in. And whilst it is seemingly connecting onto a few plays from NJC, it is going to be the Freedom Charge that allows them to survive, and the picks were just going in the direction of the team in blue.
The Blaster Barrage being forced to retreat here. Free Lose with what is essentially the strategist ultimate in their own right with that Freedom Charge. Select mid-air, tracked, forced down to the low ground. Knuten just trying to continue to ping in, but they've got to be careful. Coco is on them right now. It's actually Oligaton with the Jeff who's putting the pressure onto Coco in the backline, but Galactic Legend to target the strategist takes them down, focusing onto the Inferno. They pick it off before it goes down. It's Jeff grabs two, and that might be it. Vice capitalizing, trading up in every single duel. Free loses all that's left, but there's just too many people, and that is going to be point 2 and map 1 likely going over to Vice.
Done in such a very strong way. Knudsen able to get that first pick, just switching onto a target that was really unsuspecting of the whole thing, and then just making sure that he takes out the Endsong Inferno. Doesn't get the lock on from his ultimate from that. He has to do it himself.
Yeah.
And it's just good enough aim. We talk about Knudsen enough, honestly. It's just what you expect from him. But the rest of Vice showing that tenacity that got them this far in the first place with a nice 1-0 lead.
They begin to move their way towards those playoffs. NJC playing pretty well. There's 15 final hits, though, for Knudsen. The highest on the other side, Spyglass, of course, on that Winter Soldier, was able to catch them so many times. 14 and 6, which is pretty close to what Knudsen did. But there's only so much you can do. Yeah, you're able to catch them. Yeah, you're able to pick them off one by one sometimes. But they just weren't able to make enough happen out of it. And I'm wondering whether, if the Winter Soldier's doing a lot of the work, is it worth leading on that Phoenix?
And is it worth actually letting the Mantis through too? Because you can't really say that this was, oh, one team has Mantis, the other one doesn't. So the team that had Mantis obviously won. I don't think it was that cut and dry for Vice.
Sure.
But it's like, you know, the Vice can play it, right? You've seen that adjustment. Baby Bat was pretty well versed on that role. They've got the Mantis and the Jeff in play, and they know exactly how to play around it off each other. Surely you just don't let that happen again. It feels like that's something that you need to really look at, certainly as we get into payload maps now, whether it's going to be the convergence ones or just a pure convoy.
And we actually have a look at the statistics here. Vice have only once lost on a payload map. They are 1-1 on Midtown, 1-0 on Central Park. So it definitely seems to be somewhere that they're pretty comfortable on. Whereas if we have a look at NJC, they actually have a perfect split between domination and the payload maps, where they sit 1-0 on Celestial Husk and Yggdrasil, and they sit 0-1 on Hell's Heaven and Spider Islands.
I think NJC showed a lot more. Like Spyglass was just amazing to watch, honestly. Like, it's nice to see that Winter Soldier, that Bucky, finding so much value when the meta is shifting. It seems to be a universal threat no matter what, and really was a good thing to play around. I think the Vanguard matchups, the strategist matchups were just pretty even across the board. It was just a couple of rough fights for Vice, but once they sort of knew where to get their key players into position, they know how to win those engagements. They have a lot of experience between them. So NJC have the map choice, and it's really for them to decide where they want to try and take us.
And it's also just fascinating, just to drift off topic a little bit here quickly, just what the priorities have looked like between regions, which you should be watching all regions if you have the time for some Rivals content. They're all good. If you have a look at EMEA, Winter Soldier, Star-Lord, a little bit of Phoenix are creeping up. But if you look at China, for example, they're leaning a little bit more heavily on the Phoenix. So with America starting tonight, be curious to see where that continues to go. But speaking of where we're going, it's into map number 2 after this break. We are teetering on the edge. One win lies between Vice and playoffs, and one loss lies between NJC and being eliminated.
It's a close affair, I'd say, when it comes to lives on the line and such, but that series, I don't know. Like, it felt like it was maybe an overextend from Vice, but NJC were ready to really put the nail in the coffin potentially. And if that first point of Venom T'Challa goes differently, maybe that second point feels a lot more one-sided for NJC. But there's still a chance, right? They have the choice of map to NJC being the losers, and you've had at least a go at what the draft might look like. Granted, different game modes require different bans onto certain characters. For example, Emma Frost if we go to Convoy. But I do wonder if they're going to re-look at the fact that Mantis was allowed in play, and whether they felt that that was enough of an issue that they might want to ban out the Mantis now, or whether they're going to keep things pretty much the same.
It seemed to allow a lot of freedom. It certainly boosted the damage outputs, which did make a bit of a difference. So the question is, what map are we heading to? That can very much dictate a lot of strategies. It will be Yggdrasil. While this is a spawn hold map, it's maybe not as severe of a spawn hold map as, say, for example, Midtown.
We've already seen it in play today.
Oh, yes.
Emma Frost was the first ban out for both teams when it was Paradox up against OG Seed. Were the other teams watching, or were they too busy warming up? And maybe it's just what they've seen in the meta. It is going to be different, but not too dissimilar from what typical bans are. Ultron and Jeff, the first to be banned.
Not too surprising here. Once again, the Jeff has been doing some serious work for a lot of these teams. Ultron, though, has been appearing a little bit more consistently. And JC, this is, again, a strategy they seem to have adopted for this matchup. As before this matchup, they'd only banned Ultron once. And in this matchup, they've already banned it out twice right off the bat here.
After's looking almost identical, I think. If it's anything like the last map, Adam's about to be banned out here. Pretty much was. So Jeff, Adam, Ultron, Hulk was on one side, and then it was Ultron, Adam, Invisible Woman, Hulk. Just the one change there.
Ooh.
Whether there's going to be Jeff focus or not. But no, Strange is out, which again makes sense because we're on a convoy map.
A convoy map where spawn holds do happen, so being able to reinforce. We see some teams, like for example Chopped, have kind of moved away from the triple Vanguard, triple Strategist, or at least don't play it as often. A lot of the other teams are still very much locked in on that. We do still see that Adam Warlock being banned away. But yeah, the Strange is the reinforcement tool. When you get taken out on these big hold maps, you want to be able to reinforce quickly. Taking away from your opponent means you have the better opportunity to try and take a asymmetrical fight.
Everything for Vice, though, is pretty much the same as it was before. I think it's just more the order, really, that they banned out the Jeff, Adam, Ultron, and so if the last one's Hulk, it's exactly the same for Vice, regardless of the game mode. And Hulk is going to be fourth banned out last for NGC. They still won't protect just for this final ban. And if it's anything like last time, it would be Mantis, but Mantis is still available.
One-sided Strange secured, but that does mean that Vice can ban out either Mantis, which they saw that NJC did not play, or ban out the Hulk to prevent the main Duelist Vanguard combo, the team-up that NJC have leaned on in a lot of their games. So that will be removed from them. NJC, though they're on attack first, are immediately starting to look at the Moon Knight, and it looks like they do potentially know how to play Mantis, as Pox does hover it.
It's available for both sides, not being banned out at all, but I guess both teams... Certainly in this case, with Vice going, I don't think we need to protect it. I think we can pretty much get it for free, and they've maintained being able to get the Jeff too at the same time. So, best of both worlds.
I don't know how much of what we just saw NJC hovering is making it out of spawn. We just saw Angela and the Black Panther being hovered together. That would be aggressive, to say the least, to try and break a spawn hold, to try and isolate. Sort of the same logic we saw last series of using Wolverine to separate people out and then try and pick them off that way, and Black Panther to pressure the backline to prevent that healing coming in. But this also might just be to climb up to the high ground so that you can look out and try and see what your opponents are playing beforehand. Oh, they're
A look in. Spyglass, I wonder if we'll see much Black Panther, because we've not seen any so far, I think, this stage.
Yeah, nah.
Maybe there's an idea that he has of like how to break this spawn hold, but it does look like he's potentially switching over. Yeah, he's just on the Adam Warlock. Maybe back on the Mantis. They're going to still keep it in play and keep it working. And NJC actually still just running 2-2-2.
Spyglass onto the Winter Soldier, so they can just try and isolate people and, of course, just capitalize on the resets here. No Storm. This is when most teams would be bringing in the Storm for the damage boost. But they've decided that they just want to stick with basically the exact same thing as last time.
I'm trying to back off, not take any major damage from Coco's, just potting away at them with the Jean Grey. And in fact, in that neutral fight, BabyBat's able to turn the numbers back, so losing out on free lose means that some of that tempo, I suppose, that NJC were trying to set has to slow down and diminish ever so slightly. And it's provided a bit of space for Knuten to be a little bit annoying in the back line, maybe provide a chance for Lugia to go in for the dive. Most importantly, I guess, to make sure that Oleg doesn't go down either.
Oleg's able to get out of there, barely surviving that initial engage, as Lugia's going to swing away, a little bit of a re-engage, but that first corner starting to get a lot of pressure onto it. Free Lose getting targeted. Captain America, one of the hardest characters to track and take down, but the card is starting to make it around that first corner, one of the hardest points to get. Knuten coming in from behind with the Galactic Legend, gets Coco, who was on the flank, but the invisible boundary is proving a little bit too much to deal with here. Blaster Barrage, crack and impact to try and burst on through, but Protoss, keeping the team topped up, only gets their own Venom here. That's going to force Oligatora to back away, reset, just keep healing from the high ground, but it does look like Vice have repelled at least for moment.
At least for the time being. And Freedom Charge is going to try and get away from that sign of seduction. It's pretty much forced them to hide back into the stairwell. Still seems like NJC are trying to make this a fast fight, just wrapping around and dropping down. So Lugia needs to be a little bit more careful. Missouri, well, he's stuck behind a wall. Got his barrier there to mitigate some of the damage, but it's not got too much HP left on it either. In fact, Missouri is sort of, look at him on the map. He was just completely separated from the rest of his team for a second. They all got out and he stayed.
Incredibly good evasion, though, was able to wrap around those group walls, get back to their team, stay upright. Lugia force physics pulls them back in. They choose to take the opportunity and engage healing output, keeping them safe, at least for the moment. Teemu, so far the only wonderful Teemo, as Knuten is keeping the damage output onto everyone here with that damage boost from BabyBat. Lugia once again frozen. This Luna Protoss has been doing some massive work on trying to punish Lugia.
I mean, there's so much that goes on to focusing him down with Spyglass just having hooks, the force physics in the hand of Invisible Woman. But yet him and Knuten, that zero tenacity duo, seems to be still finding quite a lot. Hasn't gone anywhere in about 3 minutes for NJC. Payload's actually sort of moving back all the way to spawn, and this isn't your typical like triple Vanguard, triple strategist hold. This is just Vice making the adjustment depending on what's good. They have the triple strategist, sure, but it's just them sort of sat back looking pretty more than anything.
It's the same draft for both teams. They just decided to run it back, but on a different play style. And the fact is, it's looking pretty similar so far, where Vice are holding. Again, oh my god, this is just Protoss locked in here. But Blaster Barrage trying to burst on through. That Freedom Charge was giving the bonus health. It's Jeff, grabs a couple of the members. Spyglass taken down, and Jeff splits their team up. And that's a quadruple for Oligator.
I was a bit worried it wasn't going to spit out his teammates there. He's just like, we're all going. Hail Mary. 20 seconds for NJC, and considering that the payload isn't too far away, this is still a pretty safe contest for them without needing a portal play. And they have that option. Vice do not. And there's still Knuten, with all of that fight that was happening, still held on to the Galactic Legend, waiting for the Fate of Bucklands or the Invisible Boundary to be used. Both are available for this attack inside of NJC, but it really is a question of, are you going to have it forced out used first? That's where it comes in. The Invisible Boundary is going to be used from Pox to just keep things alive, but on the other side of it, those shots from the Galactic Legend are still doing damage, but no eliminations as of yet.
We see Missouri go down, Knuten goes down. There's no strategist ultimates available. Ken is just around the corner with the fate of both worlds of their own, but Vice just aren't having the sustain right now. They're being taken down, and they also don't have Portal. It was denied by NJC, so this fight is about as good as it's going to get. The fate of both worlds going to be coming on in. Feast from the Abyss to hold the line. Lugia eats the Endsong Inferno, but does not care. Ken goes down, so now it's only Lugia to hold the line, to delay and let people rush back in. BabyBat is going to re-arrive with the Soul Resurgence to give every extra second they can, but Ken falls. Free Lose with the Freedom Charge to give every backliner any extra seconds they can.
Whilst he sort of pulled ahead to get into the back line of Vice, you see Knuten doing the same thing, buying a lot more time for the It's Jeff to come through, but Spyglass is not letting that multi-pick go any further. In fact, he's going to try and get his own multi-kill string together. He's onto the back line, and Missouri's fighting up in a 1 versus 2. Somehow is still able to survive up until the uppercut into the back of his leg. Means that this is not really a chance now for Vice to contest this, as it's going to hit the second checkpoint. But you pretty much tried up all of the time available.
2.5 minutes remain as NJC will hit during overtime and allow themselves to have a chance to stay in this tournament. NJC, they're sticking with exactly what they did last time, but this time they are able to make some distance. They're able to take some control. A lot of that's down to Freelose. That backline pressure is really affecting the positioning of Vice.
And this is not a bad fight from NJC as well. They've managed to push up quite a lot. They've got good information on where these defenders are coming from. And nobody's at risk to just give this payload progression up for free. Invisible Boundary's even going to let this fight go on a little bit longer. And Timu and Pox have managed to clear up the fight so well that a reset is required from Vice and more progression is going to be made.
So Resurgence going to be popped so they can try and commit to this. Vice would like to just keep these fights going. They don't want to give NJC a chance to group up and build some strategist ultimates. They want to force everything out so that when overtime comes, they have no resources left. They can't afford to let them have extra time because Portal is still a threat. Knuten in the backline, but already Spyglass with the resets is taking control, cleaning off the objective, and the car keeps moving forward.
Just feels that even with the triple strategist, when you're running Mantis and Jeff and you put so much focus on it, you're missing on stuff like Invisible Boundary that can help you in those fights that you need a little bit more sustain to keep yourself going. Even an Eternal Bond, it just feels like there's not enough healing per second to survive through what Spyglass is throwing down with this ultimate. But now the Fate of Both Worlds is available for Ken. You got Lugia jumping in too with the Feast of the Abyss. And with just under a minute left, NGC still have a lot of time. Even if they lose this fight, they have the chance to reset. But Vice having to use a lot to just make sure that this doesn't go to third.
Freeler is going to be chased down if they want to try and pick them off so they can stagger, but he's too fast. Captain America will retreat to their team. That's also going to build Strategist Ultimate. They put it on Pox. You can see they don't let Protoss get any healing onto him because they know that Pox is closer to Ultimate. So they'd rather just build that up for this next fight.
Missouri was sort of doing the same, just takes a lot of fight from NJC there, maybe in some of the bigger cooldowns, but not the ultimates. Silent Seduction's going to go in first, and feels like Lugia is sort of waiting for that chance to dive in once the ultimate's gone down, that he can actually go into the backline. There's the combination, and the team up with Jeff is going to allow these re-hits to consistently happen. But the slam downs from NJC means that the fight is favored in for them. It was weighted. It's Jeff is going to wait out what the Ensong Inferno was, see if he can catch somebody, and he's able to get the Lunar Snow. But look how much focus goes in onto NJC to try and take him out. It's not to the end of a map to throw him off of it, but it is to isolate a target whilst Coco finds onto Knuten.
Protoss does go down, but the point is taken. Baby Bat's going to be picked up in exchange. Coco is absolutely landing so many long-range stops. And here comes Knuten. It's their backs against the wall. What time is it? It's time for Tony. They're going to bring out the Iron Man to just try and seize. They've got the damage boost. The AoE could be huge, but they're against the anti-flyer himself, the Winter Soldier. And of course, Phoenix, who is another hit scan character. This is risky, but someone who has done this repeatedly, Knuten knows what to do.
And how much is it going to be for NJC to know or expect or even have experience playing up against an Iron Man in this current meta? Just in the right hands, the wrong character could be the difference made, and the Freedom Charge for Freelose has been the way that they've kept things going. So Resurgence is going to be used as a response in more of an attempt for Baby Bat to just get their team into the fight. They get CC, they're able to survive because they do have the other two strategists keeping them going. But whilst that fight was going on, they lose their one duelist. Lugia is able to trade onto at least one of the backlines and does force out the Fate of Both Worlds. So not bad from the defenders.
I'm going to try and chase him down with the damage boost to try and make sure they can get some staggers, but they will not find anyone at least yet. Finally getting Lugia on the retreat. Silent Seduction from Missouri into the backline, trying to get onto that Emma, trying to get onto anyone here as the counter Fate of Both Worlds from Ken is buying every extra second. This is Vice once again. They know that right now their biggest resource is time.
Ooh, he's trying to see if he can get greedy and grab free. He's not able to get the Sign of Seduction as it was in use from the EMEA Frost, but he's able to grab at least one of the strategists, the Invisible Woman, trying to instantly disappear, and Invisible Boundary is going to be used. So a little bit more of a misexecution maybe from Vice. If you could take out a pick and everybody could focus on them, that would be a strategist down for NJC whilst we hit overtime. But instead, Vice, because they lost one of their vanguards, wanted to reset.
Silent movement. Knudsen has snuck into position here. They're the only one with ult outside of Coco. So if you're gonna do something, now is the time. Through the doorway, and Mind's Aegis shuts that down beautifully. Coco has the Airsoft Inferno, has to drop it to survive after getting very nearly caught out. They try to just land it onto Knudsen, which they get the pickup with the help of Spyglass, and suddenly numbers leading in favor of Vice, though. They take down 2 people, Pox and Protoss. Pox is moving over to Strange, the one side is Strange for the reinforcement to try and take this on the defense. Baby Bat is just landing as much damage as they can, keeping the focus onto the Captain America, but down goes Freelose and down goes Baby Bat. Portal to come back in, but they don't reach.
Just at the end, Vice hold on, which I guess after last week, they're going to be like, okay, doesn't matter how much time that we need to hold, like we can do it in the end anyway. And it means that they have one simple goal for this map. They're able to sort of reach pretty much the end of Yggdrasil's path on attack to head into playoffs. If they don't, we're going to a third map over on Convergence. And yeah, Vice here, definitely a lot of issues, I think, with just their lethality whilst they're running this triple strategist. And Knudsen has to change, has the freedom to change to what he needs, but it just doesn't feel like it's hitting as hard as what NJC are throwing out naturally if they've been going for more of a 2-2-2.
It's time to break a spawn hold, potentially, especially with NJC having that Doctor Strange. They know they can afford to do that. So immediately you're seeing that they're going to run the Mantis Loki combo. No, they still just don't. Well, they're thinking about it. They really don't know how much, whether they like Mantis, it seems. But Mantis Loki, great combo. No Groot for them here, but they might just be able to get that extra damage boost to keep the pressure on. Freelose very much leading on that Captain America right now, whereas Vice, they are going overwhelming damage. It's time for the BRB in case someone gets taken out, and of course, sorry, not for the BRB, that was just for the armor so that everyone could get set up, but they're going for the classic Storm and Moon Knight.
It seems that Baby Bat's going to be going over towards the Luna, so if they have to make the adjustment to Mantis, it might be a little bit more uncomfortable. How do you know they're going to stay on it? It seemed that they were going to set up for 2-2-2, but Knudsen farmed up an ultimate in 20 seconds on Midtown in their first game of this stage. It doesn't seem like he's going to be able to farm up another one in 20 seconds this time.
Yeah, we're already halfway through that time. It's very unlikely, but he's going to be about halfway there, keeping the pressure on, getting healed up. They are running a double strategist here with the Mantis and the Invisible Woman, but they technically do have extra healing from that Wild Wolf from the Groot Mantis team up, so they do have a little bit of extra stain in the backline from that. But right now it's all about just breaking through these vanguards, keeping the pressure on, and you can see with the hyper pressure, the movement Teemo did go over to that group themselves, and there's the hand of Khonshu wiping out the backline.
Better late than never, but it's also like the damage he was able to do allowed, I think, Oligator to get the first pick in this fight. So a lot has been used up from NJC already. The granted, Freelose is doing well to keep the numbers pretty even. It is forcing a little bit more time and resources out of Vice, but it is delaying the inevitable. You can already see the outlines of these defenders of NJC pretty close, looking to try and take a fight up on this high ground, which is why the Storm and the Groot is trying to get there just a little bit beforehand.
They're actually saving the Strange. They realized they were able to hold that for quite a while. There's a chance that if someone else goes down before the rest of the team, then they can swap to Strange later. Here comes the God of Mischief, but Omega Hurricane into the backline, trying to force out these defensive abilities, and that's good enough. Oligator choosing not to hold it for the damage. They'd much rather just make sure they stay alive. They know they've burned a big cooldown.
Seems to be a big pick. Invisible Boundary is good. Hand of Khonshu, it's almost that you have to sort of guesstimate where it's going to be just because of where the Invisible Boundary is. But yeah, it's able to at least catch out on Freelose as he had the Freedom Charge. That might be enough sustain to keep NJC in that fight. The still numbers are going well in the favor of the defenders, but Vice having to sort of give up a lot of the space and back off a little bit more. They're still trying to make this 2-2-2 work without the Lunar Snow, despite having it available to them. Is there going to be a change to triple strategist, or is there going to be a change full stop?
They kind of have to lead on this. They have to keep this damage boost strat going because they know if NJC get taken down, they still have Strange. They need to make sure they're charged up with the Moon Knight in order to make sure they have a chance to contest it. The Silent Seduction is perfect. Coco is completely locked down. The Meteor M to try and catch Knuten, who sails away.
Manages to just skip on through, seeing if he can get a couple more Anks in onto the ground, but there's an Omega Hurricane available for Oleg now, and it's going to be used pretty much instantly. In fact, a lot of the ultimates that Vice have been getting on this map, you grab them, you use them as soon as possible. You got a Hand of Khonshu, but you've got an NJC probably spreading out to make sure that people aren't going to be hit by this AoE. There's the invisible boundary, and the Hand of Khonshu, he's holding onto it. It's still a little bit of movement, but a minute left, Tetra.
They're running out of time. Missouri drops low. Guardian Barrier keeps them topped up. Knuten's looking for the group up. Missouri is so close to having ultimate. Here comes the portal. Re-engage. Spyglass, knowing that they've lost one person, they'd much rather contest this. The group walls are actually proving very difficult to shoot around, but Straggling Prison, Hand of Khonshu, good night! It is Ninja getting taken down, and Vice break the first point with seconds to spare, something you can't have said for NJC.
Yeah, Knuten probably going to go back to spawn, switch up some of the characters. Is going to be the Jeff and play for Oleg. In fact, he's going to move off of the Storm, and Knuten on the Punisher. He knows all of those little cute spots that you could set up with the zipline and actually get onto some high ground that is a little bit harder to obtain. You might even stick the turret over on the payload itself, but I think for the backline, yeah, you've still got Baby Bat on the Mantis, and then the Invisible Woman. Setting up the barrier in front of this turret might be a good strategy, and it might actually catch off Freelose that was ready to dive in.
The Punisher is so good into Groot. The damage ratio, the rate I was about to say is so good at taking down the Groot walls, but Spyglass is very good at taking down the Punisher. It's a lovely pickup. Straggling Prison, counter Groot wall to try and block off some of the damage, and they got away with that. Baby Bat was taken out a little bit early, but Vice actually sustained that.
I felt a little bit like Vice expected it, right? Like Knuten goes down to like, okay, we need to back off. They might try and go on the offensive here to really win this engagement. And really nothing was really needed actually to keep Vice alive ultimate-wise. Now they're going on the counterattack again. You've got one pickup at least over an Invisible Woman. You can see Alligator's trying to get out, at least to try to protect himself from what's happening. And NJC have ultimates, but they're still losing out players just beforehand. And it's just the chaos. Now things are looking better for this defensive side. The French team fighting out a little bit more for Vice. It's just less than 2 minutes is on the clock. But Vice, yeah, don't have too much to work with, but they're looking at the final judgment, no doubt.
They're charging up to it with a damage boost from Baby Bat. That might be enough to break on through, but it means you're leading very heavily onto a ultimate base team fight instead of trying to take these overall fights, because NJC have them extremely held. This corner has barely moved this entire time. Freedom charge into the backline, trying to lock them down, but they tag the kick, meaning that they don't get stunned down a second time.
Timo's had a Strangling Prison for quite some time. I think he was... there was maybe a chance. He farmed up that second Strangling Prison so quickly on his second point that I think it could have come out before Knuten did get that final judgment. It was just that simple and that straightforward. And yeah, sure, you've got that Strangling Prison that you're still holding on to. But in that time, maybe, just maybe, Ken could get an invisible boundary, and that might be enough to save them.
That was executed so well, utilizing Oligator's Jeff bubbles to allow the quicker rollout so that Knuten could make their way around the corner before NJC could react to the sound cue of the ultimate and get into cover. That was fantastic. Here comes the move out here. Lugia making space with the Silent Seduction, gets onto Timo. They're going to try and go for the focus. The high ground is also being completely displaced, but ultimates, Missouri could try and get the counter to pull him in as Timo got the Straggling Prison into the End Song Inferno. It's Jeff to keep the team held onto the point and to try and snipe anyone on the backline. Grabs no one, but keeps the healing output going. Kraken impact from Spyglass to turn this fight on its head has taken down Knuten, the maiden only damage for Vice.
It's all to play for now. NJC have forced it to overtime, and there's still a good amount of ground to make. You've got the Strangler Prison pulling all of the defenders of NJC together, but then also the hook coming in. Spyglass has maybe turned this fight around with the fate of both worlds. Nobody from NJC is going down, and there's one of the two strategists that is eliminated for Vice. It's going to be Baby Bat out of the server just before they get that Soul Resurgence. It really is a question of if Knuten could be that golden child again. A final judgment would go hard here, but you also need to be touching the point. It's a last-ditch attempt, and it's not enough. NJC are bringing us to a third map.
The power of the Punisher, being able to reinforce is so good. Being able to do that much damage with the damage booster burst through every setup is so good when you have your ult. But the power of the Doctor Strange to reinforce, to allow NJC to just go for quantity of fights, allows them to hold for just long enough that they're able to take game number 2 and take us to our 3rd map of the series.
We've got a 39-11 Knudsen going up against a 22-10 Spyglass, but I just think the double duelist was double duelist against just a Mantis Invisible Woman on that final point. It's just too much. I understand they're using the Mantis and like the damage boost and making sure that they can just funnel that in with the triple strategists. Certainly when Oleg moved over, but it's just not enough sustain, it feels like. If NJC just keep dedicating to 222 and their damage breakpoints of duelists is enough to get through 3 strategists, something's very wrong there, I feel.
Really might be. They just can't seem to be able to get either enough sustain or enough damage. They're getting some good isolations with the Jeff. Oligathon is playing very nicely, but it's just, I'm not sure if it's enough or whether it's too much strategy healing. The Jeff and the Mantis together doesn't seem to be impacting as much as I think they would like.
Not when it comes to, yeah, these like big hit finishes when you've got a Phoenix in play and then the Kraken's Impact from Winter Soldier. I think it is a little bit like NJC have been clever with this draft, because it's like you can have Mantis if you want, but if you're like prioritizing having a non-mirrored one-way Jeff and then you get Mantis, it's a little bit like you're spoiled for choice a bit. That some teams are like, hey, we're not going to get Mantis, so we're going to try and prioritize getting Jeff instead or getting Ultron. Here it just feels like, well, what if we give you both? It's like, well, both of them together don't seem like they make any sense. I think ultimately what I'd want to see from Vice is not too much on that one-sided Jeff and maybe try and go for something else, or just make sure that Mantis isn't a problem in the draft.
We've seen teams do it. We know it does work. It's just in this particular draft, I wonder, because you have the Mantis and the Jeff. What is the actual KO condition? How do you get pickups? It's Star-Lord, and that kind of limits you to the ultimate, because otherwise you don't really have enough damage to get the finishing blows with Blaster Barrage. You've got to either chase and actually track heads really effectively, or you might not have enough DPS to get those finishing blows. We're heading to our third map of the day, and our last map of the day, no matter what. So thank you all very much for watching. We'll be back with the conclusion of this series after this break.
We've had some decisive games, I think, for playoffs elimination here in EMEA Ignite for Stage 2, but thankfully, I think, Tetra, this final series, that final spot in play to make it the top 8 teams in Europe, is a little bit more hotly contested between these two teams.
We hit a map 3, and these teams have to adjust now. We just saw them basically run the exact same strategies back at each other, and had a basically completely flipped result. In the first game, Vice were able to control pretty effectively with the triple strategist Star-Lord. But on this time, this was pretty convincingly, we could 100% say here, this was NJC controlling the fights, being able to reinforce with portals when it came time for their defense, which they, of course, went back to the more standard triple Vanguard, triple strategist, as we are heading into what has to be, no matter what, a convergence map now.
Central Park, from the music, it sounds like. So not quite the Midtown prowess, I think, for Vice available to them, but at least on the same park, quite literally.
Same city.
NJC, I feel like they've made this series work for them when it comes to the draft and stuff. For Vice, if it's anything like the previous maps, the protection of Jeff is something that they might look at before. But also, the other thing I was going to say with the 2-2-2 from Vice is that they were sort of first protecting this Luna and then didn't really use it on that attacking side at all.
This is Vice's second time on Central Park. They won it the first time. NJC, they have yet to play it. So yeah, the Luna coming in here immediately. Vice prioritizing that. And again, that's going to be Baby Bat or Ken, both of which are extremely proficient on the character.
Luna protected on both sides. 3 for 3 so far in this series. Or I guess 6 for 6. First protect being both these characters. And if I was to guess, Vice are looking likely to go for the Adam, the Ultron, and then the Hulk to finish, potentially. Everything seems pretty much standard hunky-dory.
It's so different to what they banned last time on this map. And again, it's them catering. It's why they also have a pretty fairly wide ban pool. This is so much Vice just focusing on banning their opponents. Because if you look at their bans in the last time they played on this map, Magneto, Mantis, Torch, Adam. Literally none of those heroes are here except for Adam.
This is different now, because it was the Ultron and then the Strange was part of the drafting last time. And so, yeah, Strange is available here because it's Convergence. You do have like that first point to play and contest for, but a one-sided Invisible Woman versus a one-sided Jeff means that, I guess, in this case, it would have been Ken that was playing the Invisible Woman before. We won't have the option for it.
Protections onto Luna and Jeff versus Luna and Invis means that NJC have a much more stable backline. And once again, Mantis slides through the draft untouched.
I think, yeah, this one-sided Invisible Woman might be the make or break thing here. And it really, I guess that's a question for the winner for the interview later, because, right, you've got the one-sided Strange. Did it feel like Strange was the defining factor for NJC in that last map? No, it was just having that option, having that availability. Probably makes your life just a little bit easier.
This is... On the hover, we just saw them doing the exact same thing again. Vice choosing to believe that this is the strategy that works, unless they decide to rotate a little bit before this first rollout. Central Park is the map, the first courtyard. Extremely difficult to break on those first initial engages. NJC were already looking at stuff like the Groot, making that main entrance gate very difficult to push on in, whereas on the side of Vice, same again. They're just going to siege on in, try and let Lugia on that Venom pressure the backline, and see what they can do with Knuten on this Star-Lord.
One final map for the season for one team. One final map to qualify for playoffs for the other. Vice are going to be attacking first. Like you sort of mentioned, it's that triple strategist line that's going. Oleg is still going to be on the Jeff with the Mantis. And Knuten, the sole duelist, trying to find a way into this fight up against a 2-2-2 that's looked fairly scary. Actually, not anymore for NJC. They've got the Loki and triple strategist in play and triple Vanguard.
Triple Vanguard, Triple Strategist, they're going back to it. They've also got the Heavenly Guardian team up with Mantis, which is giving the group that Wild Wall to give extra healing, and of course it gives that Loki damage boost when you're in that regeneration domain, which is making it extremely difficult for Vice to step up, as Oligator is once again tracked down. This seems to be Freelose's job as they are lifted up into the sky by the map.
Yeah, I think the environment actually saved Freelose's life there, because you could see everybody from Vice even grouping around him with the sedation to go in for this engagement. You got to say NJC as well, running triple Vanguard without the Emma Frost is kind of unique, considering that seems to be one of the main pulls towards it. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The fight is still going the way of NJC.
They're holding, they're keeping the delay on, and once again, Vice, they're tracked down, and Freelose is just playing a completely different game to the rest of their team. Their team is playing Defend the Tower, and Freelose is just playing Farming Sim.
Now, you're looking at ultimates for Vice, you're sort of trying to guess what NJC will have available, and maybe Freelose is going to overextend a little bit, but he knows that he has this freedom because there's no invisible woman allowed on the side of Vice, so those force physics keeping him in place and keeping him CC'd is not going to be an option. But there's just no CC available for Vice outside of the sedation, and that might be one of the reasons why they keep going down so easily. It's free reign for the Vanguards to just harass.
Trying to hold this once again, another isolation team who just targeting the back line. The front line of Vice tries to move forward when suddenly Baby Bat, Noligaton and Ken are in danger, and they have to retreat again. Another pickup onto Lugia, who's picked off as they try to create some space inside the area, and Vice, they've got all their ultimates. At this point, burn the ultimates, and then something may have to change if it doesn't work.
You don't have too much time, and the pressure's going to start building. A full hold here would almost cement NJC this series and playoffs, and that's going to be the thing that starts it. Soul Resurgence is going to be used on the other side from Pox, whilst you've got this Sign of Seduction and the Soul Resurgence used for Vice on the attack. Strangler Prison from Timo is going to be used, but nobody has gone down just yet. There's the Jeff. Is there going to be something to try to stop that grab from coming in? Yeah, Invisible Boundaries, Fate of Both Worlds, just everything used. All 12 ultimates were available at the start of this fight, and then finally an elimination comes in off the back of Lugia's Fate of Both Worlds. Whilst all of this is being pushed out and waited, the Meteor M has provided some solstice for NJC to keep fighting for this, and it does seem like that Galactic Legend that was being held onto from Knudsen gets a goose egg. It gets nothing.
And that's all down to NJC. They staggered perfectly. While we saw Vice come in, they dropped Soul Resurgence. Then they dropped the It's Jeff, but they dropped that Fate of Both Worlds a little bit afterwards, so that they actually staggered those two together a bit. Whereas NJC, they dropped Soul Resurgence into Invincible Boundary, and they got the extra with that God of Mischief, buying them extra healing time and allowing all of them to survive that initial Galactic Legend. Knudsen has moved on to the Iron Man, and they're running out of time. They get taken out again, and we're down to 22 seconds, Ryan.
It's not enough time, and there's no other adjustments that are happening other than going on to Iron Man. This feels like desperate for Vice. They've made zero progression on the point in 4 minutes. You've got Lugia that's trying to dive in to sort of create some of the space and clear some of the clones from Loki. But is there going to be a touch just in time? Vice have it all to do here. You've got an Iron Man ultimate on the horizon, and your counterpart, the Vanguard, is able to actually get a pick for Lugia. So the numbers are in your favor for now, but there's still so much for NJC to rely on. Is it going to be just playing for a draw as the best chance for Vice? They haven't quite got a third onto the point, and the Strangling Prison just waiting for the end. Saved in the end from the ultimate from Iron Man. Still fighting for a third, but you might be able to take this point completely. Oh, it was just at the end, the nick of time. Vice have been able to potentially take this final point. NJC, are they looking to try and contest this? They are. They have got the touch.
They're delaying as best as they can. Ken with the Fate of Both Worlds. Lugia with the damage boost takes out Pox, but Spyglass with the Meteor M is going to try and find the backline. Takes out Baby Bat, removing a lot of the damage boost, but they get taken down as well. And Knudsen is untouched in the air. The superior Iron Man melts on through, and Missouri sends them packing. That is going to be the first point picked up by Vice. They made a change and finally got back.
A change as well, switching back to the Mantis. And this isn't a bad point for the Iron Man to be playing on. We see a lot of Human Torch being used, which is available for both sides, but not actually just who's going to play it in this instance? Knuten actually going to switch over to the Star-Lord, maybe sort of expecting that there is going to be that adjustment. And yeah, you've got Coco moving over towards like the Phoenix, and then you've got the Winter Soldier back for Spyglass. So they've moved off of this triple strategist to something that's been working consistently for them all series.
Here comes the Freedom Charge into the backline. Once again, Oligator is going to be the first one to fall down. Freelus does get frozen, but there's no capitalization on that because he's too sustainy with that ultimate. It's going to be another, essentially, full team wipe coming in from NJC as they are repelling Vice once again. And Vice, they're back on this same strategy once again. They do have that Lunar Snow for a little bit of sustain through this, but like you said, without the invisible boundary, is that enough? Can they sustain through? Because Spyglass is already almost at Kraken Impact, and Coco is already at that Ensong Inferno with Teemo sneaking towards the Meteor M.
Ooh, straight into getting a pick onto Coco, and was trying to follow up with a pick, but that's an incredible bulwark that comes in from Teemo, the barrier to just keep his teammate alive. It's Jeff being used. There hasn't really been many instances of this working out in favor. The Kraken's Impact is going straight for him. Yep, every time he grabs somebody, he is taken out instantly by somebody just slamming on top of that Shark's noggin. But Spyglass is trying to get a little bit more, but maybe gets more than he bargained for as he runs straight into Mizero, who has been one of the things I think that has kept Vice in this one, able to get multi-picks, stringing them together, much like he's doing now, means that the momentum is starting to build for the attacking side that couldn't get things moving at all.
Fully charged Emerald conversions is pretty good. That's the second double KO for Missouri in just about a minute and a half as they start to move up to try and zone, to try and hold them in the choke point of these entranceways. Silent seduction for Missouri. They're actually pushing into the door, but Teemo is snuck past. Media M finds Baby Bat behind the tail.
Baby Bat almost just being a bit of a target to go for, but 10 seconds means that you are going to be without one of these strategists. One of them being required to use this Fate of Both Worlds to keep things fighting, and Knuten, he has his ultimate. He might not even need it. This is still being contested. Now he's going to try and get everybody off the point, and it still needs to be contested for Vice.
Ensong Inferno going to be keeping Coco up. They're going to try and capitalize on when they respawn to get the finishing blow to try and take them down. Coco dropped and is going to get sustained. Freelose with the protection from that Freedom Charge. Baby Bat has the portal, has brought the team back together so they can try and contest this. The regeneration domain from Pox is allowing a massive sustain from the Lokis, but Protoss is dropping down. Pox is dropping down. The backline is getting eviscerated here by Vice.
You've got everybody switching around. You've got Baby Bat that had to come back on the Strange. You've got Missouri. There was a Vanguard over on the Loki. Oleg has managed to grab two at least, spitting out one of the allies, trying to take everybody else with him just to get some numbers in favor. And you're able to grab a good amount, but Freelose, every time we switch to him, he's still just in the thick of it. Pure sweat on his brow, not willing to go down. He can quite literally do this all day as and when needed. Look how much focus it's taken to make sure that he's not played. But it's just the stall is allowing more time for NJC to keep things fighting, to keep things going. These overtime fights, these scraps from Vice is just too much to keep themselves topped up for, and NJC is still just throwing themselves at this.
Baby Bat just got frozen midway through an Eye of Agamotto, so they're taken down as well. They are going to go down. Meteor M, but Missouri grabs the double with the help of Knuten and Ensong Inferno to try and hold this, but with attrition, it's starting to look like Vice with a slither of the point may be able to do this. They get point 2.
And 90 seconds now to push it towards the end, and that could be 3 to 5 business days if these overtimes keep pushing on and fighting. Vice, I don't know how they do it. It just feels that they are completely out of steam and out of energy, but they just find enough to keep this going. No bell has been rung just yet on this attacking side, despite it lasting twice as long as it usually would.
If NJC, their resources, their own lives, being willing to sacrifice themselves to win games, then Vice's resource is stress and overtime, because they are just giving all of it to try and push on in a little bit further. But that car's moving forward. The Cosmic Flames, though, the sparks from Coco are melting. Everyone's grouped up together. It's Jeff coming on in to try and grab someone, but Kraken Impact is at the ready. But Oligator is fleeing. He's escaping. Get that shark! As Oligator is trying to send anyone off, but it's not able to get a single pickup. It's Baby Bat who falls. It's Ken and Oligator who falls. And with 25 seconds left, is Portal up?
It's a reset. You've got some good ultimates to work with, though, for this final attack. But look at NJC. They know where they need to be, where they need to throw their bodies. And both these teams are throwing every single inch that they have, every bit of stress, every hour that they've worked, every scrim goes into playoffs here or elimination. You're done in the year. It's everything in these kind of fights. And Vice is starting it off with the picks and 2 big ultimates. You have got that Galactic Legend in favor of Knuten again, but Freelose is still alive. Even just, no, it's not enough. He can't stay alive. The overtime push for Vice is happening. One more fight maybe for NJC.
That's a quadruple, though. Knuten takes them down again. And this is it, like you say. 1, maybe 2 more fights for NJC if they start to get taken out. No ultimates available, but they're close. Meteor M at 92%. Spyglass with that Kraken impact at 78. On the other side, 0 defensive tools remain. Vice are on their own, having to just run this in with what they have and hope that a Feast from the Abyss can get a pickup. Or Knuten on the flank takes out Coco.
He's so far in behind him. Just all the focus went onto the objective for NJC that they didn't see it coming. They are able to at least flush out that little rat in the backline that's been such a pain in the backside to deal with, and the Vanguards are finding a lot. Lugia is doing it all to try to really take the focus away from his team, away from this point, to get a couple more inches, a couple more meters. Anything is going to do, anything that can help, especially now that you have got the It's Jeff grabbing onto 2, but it's just instantly deleted from NJC.
Oligator mostly got his own team. He nearly pulled them off the point. They lost all the overtime, and that is it. That is NJC holding on 2 points, 93 meters, 62 centimeters. Now we flip sides, and it comes down to this. Winner goes to the playoffs. Loser will be eliminated.
Not finishing the map like Vice did on Midtown, but you've got that defensive side, which I think, frankly, like they looked the better side on. Really, it was one of those things of just like they were able to hold off on Yggdrasil before I got to the end of the map. It was just that attacking side was lacking. So you've, considering that you almost got full held, I think you're going to take that you pretty much finished out Central Park. You've drawn yourself a nice line in the sand, but it's still, they're living and dying by that strategy, right? The way that they want to play with their comp, and it's almost commendable because it's like they feel that that's enough. And I agree, meta-wise and theory-wise, it works, but it just seems like a composition, execution-wise, that is just hard to pull off.
Steve,
I completely agree. It's so, they're getting it so good when they actually get it right, and they're doing so well when they get it right. But on those short times, there's opportunities where it just doesn't seem to hit home. And on a map like this, where you see a lot of teams just going for maximum sustain, but they're on the same strategy again, this is Vice truly showing that they believe in this setup. In a bit.
Next time on Marvel Rivals Ignite.
We'll be heading into the game in a moment, everybody, as we have a quick technical pause preparing for, at this point, you want to make sure that literally everything is right, because otherwise, well, you can't be going in thinking you've done anything except your best.
It happens to the best of us. I'm thinking of Finzi for Virtus Pro when he was just disconnecting randomly in the middle of a series against Knuten, actually. Sure. Yeah. The players actually asked for a pause, so
they need a mental break after everything that's happened so far. And you know what? In a high-stakes scenario like this, let them. At this point, it comes down to this. America's not for a little bit. Let them relax for a moment. We can feel.
I mean, genuinely, if you've got some players that live alone, it might be, hold on, guys, we need to pause because my neighbors have called the police on me because they heard rampant screaming from my flat for 3 minutes straight, you know?
Yeah.
You got to make sure that the life stuff is done so these teams can play the best. And I don't mind waiting. If that's genuinely a reason of Knuten has lost his voice and now he's bleeding out of his mouth or something, yeah, go get that checked, you know? I would rather these teams have that break and then go into this final half not feeling like anything is not on their side, you know?
Exactly. So let's talk about some stats while we are waiting here.
Oh boy.
For this series, Vice had played Star-Lord 3 out of the 5 games they had played so far. and they had lost 2 of them. They were 1 and 2. But again, you've got to remember who Vice have been up against so far in this tournament. They've been playing a lot of Luna, as we've already been saying. You start to look at the other side, NJC. We already talked about how they've been leaning more heavily on EMEA, Hulk, Namor, Invis, and definitely Luna. Luna has been very deciding for these teams so far, but in terms of win rates, it's very much been looking at stuff like the Mantis for NJC, who, when the 2 times they've played it, they have won. Yeah, they didn't play it so much previously.
I know the reason. One of the mouses has given out. Which, honestly, again, you know, my natural thing would be make sure that your mouse is charged before an official. But honestly, in those kind of fights, it wouldn't surprise me if the mouse just gave out. Also, we were discussing this earlier, whether these fly rounds were the zone that these maps were from. For example, we saw Yggdrasil's Path with Royal Palace. This is all Central Park. There's no Midtown here.
Yeah, so I guess for like Eastgard and for Wakanda, it's the overall area. But I guess because of the very differing aesthetics of Dracula's castle and a street in New York, they get their own little fly-throughs here.
Yeah, it's the same with like Araco and Krakoa, considering they're like sister maps, I guess it would be. Yeah, I think it's also like this map came out a little bit later, so maybe it was production where they did the others together, and then all the newer maps they've done one at a time because they've been added in.
Quite possibly. There's also Symbiotic Surface and Celestial Husk. You could probably do those 2 together and it wouldn't be as obvious, whereas Krakoa and Araco, I'm pretty sure Araco is on Mars in the current canon. I'm not sure. I might be remembering that wrong.
No, you're right. I think you've got... I don't ask me to explain the lore of this game, please. Just asking anybody to explain any Marvel lore, whether it's the MCU or like actual storylines. We should be back into game very soon, but like I said before, it gives us a respite, I think, for everybody in chat to really appreciate what we're about to see, because these are going to be memories or nightmares made as NJC have to get the map pretty much to the end of Central Park. They have that payload to take, Vice on the defense, changing over. They're actually running the Cloak and Dagger instead of the Mantis in Triple Strategist.
Interesting. Going for vulnerability and extra healing output. Honestly, not a bad idea. If you're struggling against that Captain America especially, making them vulnerable could be the tool of trying to deal with Freelose. Coco dueling pretty effectively here, but taking a lot of damage on this initial approach. Teemo leading the pathway for the first initial setup, but again, Freelose is in the backline, and where's the assistance? Pox is the first to fall. Lugia takes out Protoss, and while Freelose is in their backline, his own team's backline is suffering.
It's almost too much spoiled for choice. Like, Freelose manages to survive in that fight, surprisingly. I mean, his movement on Captain America has been exceptional. It's like watching Paulie.
100%.
Like, he's actually probably been the MVP of NJC, I would say, just because of how irritating he has been to deal with. But granted, he does go down, and Vice very carefully hold on this defense.
Spyglares or Freelose are 100%, and I think I'm with you with it being Freelose. They have been the reason that the backline has been so pressured, and why Oligator has been having a pretty miserable game so far, because he's just being targeted. Freelose, he's just punching the shark over and over again. But in the meantime, Vice, with that Cloak and Dagger now, seem to have a little bit of extra sustain, and it's working for them. Here comes the Jeff, but it's not enough to keep Baby Bat sustained up.
Seeing if they can grab somebody through this, and it's actually going to be the Kraken's Impact leaping out of the way to not get caught by the It's Jeff, but in case anybody does get grabbed, making sure that he goes down quickly. This is a good hold. It is a trade. Oleg is actually not afraid to go down alongside the ship, which is Coco, with the grab, and this defense is good. Vice have done so well just to hold on for half the time, but NJC did hold on for the full 4 minutes. It was only OT that we actually started to see the payload moving.
Yeah, we're getting a full mirror here with all that time being drained away. Oligator, by the way, made the sensible choice of running off the edge with Coco instead of actually just trying to split them, because, of course, there is that psionic teleport that Coco has and the free flight that they can enter into with that Phoenix powers on Jean Grey. Baby Bat keeping everyone topped up. Freelose is back in the back line. This is very familiar. Oligator is suffering because of it, but the team is keeping each other sustained up, and it's mostly just Freelose punching, having very little effect until his team gets there.
More keeping everybody topped up, and it has forced out at least that fate of both worlds. very early engagement, and then the end song, is that to follow up on what the Jeff has? No, Jeff doesn't have ultimate. I think it's just trying to see if he can catch up to one of the strategists in the backline anyway. But so far, it's looking like a third is about to be built. The MJC are actually starting to make some progression here, but the picks are still going in favor of Knuten. The Galactic Legend seeing if he can catch on to where Spyglass is, and a full team wipe. 1 minute left for NJC.
But there was a big dive into the backline from the members of NJC, Freelose and Teemo, but now they're completely isolated from their team. They're going to get some bonus health from Freelose, but Teemo just cannot escape. Lugia with the body blocks, preventing any of that bonus health from coming in. Knuten falls to Protoss.
I mean, actually, the strategists have actually been very good at getting picks themselves off of all of the damage thrown in, and Freelu's taking out the backline of Babybat. That's scary, though, for Vice. It's a long way to run back from the defensive spawn, and the Eternal Bond is going to allow some more space for Vice to work with, whilst the portal play from Knuten, actually, he's having to switch over to make sure the Babybat can get back into the fight as quickly as possible.
Oligatora tries to go for a swallow, but it's just getting targeted down a bit too much. Will go down in this fight, meaning it's currently a 5v4. Bakamoto going to come out, catches 3 members of Vice, and NJC about to hit overtime, but they're starting to get control. Teemu, Pox, and Coco are hanging on by the skin of their teeth right now, as Lugia gives everything to this point, but they're just getting whittled down bit by bit. Point number 1 goes over to NJC.
Pretty much a neutral way of how this has been going. Vice buying it up to overtime, using all 4 minutes up, and now they have 2.5 to hold here. Any extra time that NGC are going to get, they're definitely going to use if they can get to third. So this has to be a good fight that Vice take, otherwise they're overextending. There's big ultimates for NJC that they have or about to have. It could be a big misstep if they don't take this fight well.
Almost halfway through the point, though. They have to take the fights, because otherwise all this distance is just going to be gained with so much time remaining. 2 minutes to go. Sonic seduction, while Freelose dives to the backline, eats the freeze. Missouri unable to catch anyone, but burnt invisible boundary and freedom charge. That is a very effective trade.
Freelose is still in this fight. There's just so many bodies to be cleaving onto, and that's the second freeze that's come in from the Lunar Snow, but he's pretty much not taken more than 50% of his HP as damage. He's just out-sustaining everything that's being thrown in his direction, and now the Kraken's impact is coming in. That's a hell of a freeze, actually. That is a crazy shot from Protoss to stop that Galactic Legend coming in.
Protoss may have just saved their team this point here, as in comes the fate of both worlds as well for the extra sustain. Eternal Bond from Ken on the mirror. It's Jeff about to be ready. Enzo Inferno on the flank. It snipes Ken with the help of the Media M. And suddenly, NJC are getting the momentum 1 by 1. It's Jeff, but Coco, you are not getting away with that. Oh my god, he got away with it.
Of course he did. He goes down. It means that that's going to be good for the reset, because that's what Vice have to do now. They have to try and group up and take this next engagement together, but they do stall out some of those aggressive characters from NJC to take in more space against them. The payload, in fact, isn't even moving. Vice have done well to steady the ship here. 30 seconds left near enough, and there's still a good couple of fights that you might be able to grab.
Lugia on the flag, taking a little bit of damage, but is willing to sacrifice HP for that extra protection. But here comes the Freedom Charge, Feast from the Abyss, finds no one, but Pox is finished off by Ken. Knuten gets Coco, and Babybat falls to the backline. It's just Vanguards harassing strategists while the duelists do whatever they want. Ken falls again. Here comes the Kraken impact, though, and Spyglass onto the point. If they get Venom, then this might be enough resets to hold and push on for the rest of the distance. But NJC just can't land the finishing blows.
Oh no, Knuten's sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. But that dive that came in from him and Lugia not only is able to just keep harassing NJC's backline, but it stalled the payload for another fight as we've hit OT. Lugia sort of doing the same, swinging it in and out, allowing the portal play, and then off the back of it, you've got that silent seduction. Oligator's managed to catch onto Pox.
He's bringing out the Strange to try and hold up. Oligator BO has no HP, though. It's going to be a complete team wipe, essentially. No one from Vice can sustain this. They're actually going to think about using Strange to dive onto the point, but they just can't afford to have only one person there. They'd rather make sure the team's all grouped up, and of course swap back over to that Jeff to begin building another It's Jeff. NJC, it's now distance. It's no longer points. They are just a few meters away from, for their first time in Ignite, making it to the playoffs.
60 seconds plus extended OT, which you have to sort of bear in mind with how these fights have been going. Free Loose has been so good for NJC to keep things going. The impact that he's having is insurmountable to even mention, but the fact that NJC have 6 ultimates and a pick in their favor, this is theirs to lose at this point, I think, Tetra.
And so Inferno comes on in, Knuten already down, waiting for the respawn. Lugia retreats to the rest of their team. There's that finish line at the entrance to the throne room. The throne room that we could see NJC sitting upon if they can just take this. Invisible Boundary comes on out. The cart is stalled, held at this point with 24 seconds remaining. It's Jeff, Meteor M is sustained. Jeff does not find anything, taken down by the Kraken impact for the sustain. Coco will fall for any extra heroes. Knuten comes in with a Galactic Legend. Protoss is keeping their team topped up as best as they can with 10 seconds remaining. Protoss and Pox fall. The strategists are out. Kogo's going to portal back in with the Freedom Charge, giving them the bonus health to hold onto the point with every ounce of effort. NJC, they need to hold this as overtime ticks down. Portal, Protoss with them, Loki to give the extra sustain, but the Lantern is absolutely deleted here. Psionic Seduction to try and punish people as they come through the portal to shut down any ultimates that are off cooldown, but there's nothing left. Spyglass barely up, comes back in the BRB. Coco falls, but Vice, no one is going down. It's health bars ticking away. Lugia with the symbiotic resilience to hold every extra second that they can. Pox is holding, but there's no one left. It's GG.
Vice yet again holding on for that last inch, that last fight. And the big ultimates. We keep saying that like Knuten had his moments, but Missouri was one of the main things that turned it into their favor. What a series, a way for it to end. And Vice continue on in their typical style, but they make it to playoffs.
They actually did it in overtime, all the way to the final map. Vice burst through once again. After Knuten and Lugia, they made it to the 4th place last stage, and then the team, unfortunately, was not able to come to full bear. What do? They rebuild, they recover, they join up with some legendary players, acquire some new friends, and they made it to playoffs once again. The journey continues, but let's just say, for a first time in Ignite, what a performance by NJC.
It was terrific. Like, I mean, all of the players had their moments where they really showed that they have a future in this game. Granted, it is the end of their run, their campaign in 2025 for the main flagship event in Marvel Rivals, but you can't be leaving feeling like this is the end of something. This feels like it's just the beginning, honestly. It's just, no matter who is going to win this series, it's a rough around the edges for both teams. They're relatively new, cores of different squads being put together, but both teams played with so much heart, you can't help but root for both of them, really. It's just, yet again, feels like it's the Carbon thing that I keep saying. It's a shame that we've had to send one of these teams home.
But it's gotta be said, you're so correct with that point, because both these teams could go further. We've just seen incredible performances under pressure, which is exactly what the playoffs is. Even more pressure being applied to these teams. Unfortunately, we do say goodbye to NJC, to Ninja Creamy, but the progression for Vice after what is incredible series from start to finish, very much leading on a new composition this time that they seem to have locked in on for this series, and we've got to ask them if we get an interview about why this series is the one that they decided to stick with such a strict composition.
Yeah, whether it's an execution issue or not, I don't think it's going to matter too much for them. I don't think they're going to be doing like the VOD review. They play again tomorrow, so it's not like they have much time to sit back and chill and celebrate before the next game. But they're going to be celebrating the fact that they qualified for playoffs. If they lose tomorrow, it's fine. They still have next week to perform, to work out all of the things that they might feel that they need to fix after this series, because they were pushed to the brink. But we do have an interview with somebody that held their own on the backline as much as they could do. It's Baby Bat from Vice, somebody that I guess we wanted to say a lot. First of all, congratulations. How's your heart rate and your voice in comparison to Midtown a couple of days ago?
I mean, Midtown was completely insane. When we played against Encore, that 5-minute overtime hold was, I mean, it was nerve-wracking. My heart was beating, my lungs felt dry, I was screaming, and to be honest, the same thing happened this game, like this last game, because I felt like I just could not survive. I was getting everything thrown at me, and I was trying so hard not to feed, and I was screaming my lungs out, saying, "Guys, please carry me, help me." But I'm super proud of what we've achieved so far.
So now that you've officially made it to playoffs, it's probably time to reveal it. Are you guys at this point paid by the minute? Because you've taken it to overtime so many times in the majority of these games you've been playing.
You would assume so, right? We are getting paid to make it extra like close, but no, actually not. We just kind of, I don't know what's going on, but we just lock in overtime. We want this win. Everyone wants to just succeed and get to the next match, get to the next stages. But yeah.
In this series, because you were pushed pretty much the distance by NJC, what was it that was going wrong for you guys on stuff like Yggdrasil's path and stuff? Because they left Mantis open, and so for you, you're in that awkward situation of like, do I play the Luna or do I play the Mantis? Because you want to prioritize getting Oleg on Jeff. Like, was it the sort of like having that freedom to play the Mantis that made it a little bit harder to follow through on your draft, or was that sort of the plan? Because you kind of stuck to your guns throughout that series.
Yes, honestly, in like retrospect, like looking back, I feel like we should have swapped the Mantis, because if I remember correctly, we did have the Invis open, so I feel like we could have played Invis with Luna and Jeff, which could have, I feel like it could have helped us more. But when you're like into the game, like playing like in the moment, you kind of forget about the options that you still have open. So that's kind of why we stuck to Mantis on that map. Yeah.
So actually, you want to expand on that a little bit. You stuck with Mantis, but you also stuck with Star-Lord. You stuck with almost the exact same draft every game, including on defense on a convoy map, which a lot of times we see people lean a little bit more heavily into 3 Vanguard and 3 strategists, with the exception of some teams. What is it about this particular composition that had you guys lock in so heavily on it?
So the team up with Venom and Jeff is extremely strong, and we do kind of like our point in this team in this match was to have a kill box open for us, and then everyone just rushes in, tries to get one target down, and the team up with Venom and Jeff is so extremely strong for that, especially with bubbles, like the speed bubbles that Jeff provides is super strong for pretty much everyone in the team, but especially Star-Lord. That's why we kind of stuck to this team composition, because it has brought it helped us in scrims a lot. So I mean, it's an official, we don't want to try something completely new that we haven't really practiced yet, so that's kind of why we stuck to this comp.
Oh.
All right, well, for starters, this is your first time, I believe, on the Ignite stage, and your first time making it to playoffs. So you've already seen all the other teams that are qualified for playoffs. So the last question is, what message do you have for your opponents coming up, and what message do you have for the world who might be being exposed to you for the first time?
We might seem like a team that only gets stuff done in overtime, but I feel like that also is one of the strengths of us, because we do always lock in and come out on top when it matters the most. So I feel like we shouldn't be underestimated by other teams, and I am very proud of all of my teammates and all of our managers, our coach. They help us so dearly, and I'm very happy with my team.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining us, Baby Bat. We'll let you go prepare, because obviously more games are coming up for you this week. So we'll let you go back and celebrate and get ready with your team.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.